Chapter 1. The Goddess and the Sky. Long before the world bore the name Hyrule, before any kingdom stood or any hero raised a sword, there was only the land, the sky, and the will of the gods. The beginning is told in the oldest legends, carried down through the ages in quiet voices and temple carvings. In that first age, 3 divine beings descended from beyond the heavens to shape the chaos into order. Dean, the goddess of power, with arms of flame, sculpted the land itself, raising mountains and carving valleys. Lanayru, the goddess of wisdom, poured out her light and created law, giving structure to the world and meaning to its movements. And Faron, the goddess of courage, breathed life into the emptiness, birthing the creatures who would walk upon the earth. When their work was done, the 3 departed to the heavens, leaving behind a symbol of their essence, the Triforce. The Triforce was a perfect balance of the goddess's powers. It did not judge good or evil, only the strength of heart in those who sought it. Whoever possessed the Triforce could shape the world according to their desire. In the ages that followed, its resting place became the source of countless hopes and fears, for where power is left unattended, darkness often follows. In time, the world flourished. Forests thickened, rivers ran pure, and humankind built peaceful villages under open skies. Yet peace is never eternal. From the blackest depths of creation came a being of unspeakable malice. His name was Demise, the Demon King, a being born from the very hatred of the world itself. With a host of monsters at his command, he rose up to claim the Triforce for his own, seeking to rule not only the earth, but the very hearts of all living things. The goddess Hylia watched as Demise's armies spread across the land like a living storm. She was not one of the 3 creators, but she was their appointed guardian, charged with protecting both the world and the sacred relic they had left behind. To defend creation, she gathered her divine power and led a great battle against the demon hordes. For every mountain the gods had raised, Demise broke another. The skies burned red, the seas boiled, and the cries of mortals filled the air. It was an age of ruin. Knowing she could not protect both her people and the Triforce at once, Hylia made a desperate choice. She summoned all her remaining strength and lifted a great fragment of the earth into the heavens. Upon this floating island, she placed the surviving humans, far above the reach of Demise's darkness. The light of her power carried the land beyond the clouds, where no evil could follow. This sanctuary became known as Skyloft, a haven suspended in a sea of white mist. Below, the surface was left scarred and silent. The goddess remained, along with her chosen warriors, to face Demise and his armies. Their battle raged for ages beyond counting, until finally Hylia struck him down and sealed his essence deep within the earth. His rage was endless, and though his body was confined, his hatred could not die. The world was quiet once more, but it was the uneasy quiet that follows a storm. The victory had come at a cost. Hylia's power was greatly diminished, and she knew her seal would one day weaken. The cycle of destruction would begin again, unless a new champion rose to meet it. Knowing this, she prepared for an age she would never see. She devised a plan to ensure that when Demise returned, the world would have its defenders, a mortal hero of unshakable courage, and a human vessel for her divine spirit. The Triforce, though divine, could not be used by gods themselves. Only mortals could wield its balance. So Hylia resolved to surrender her immortality and be reborn among the people she loved. Through her mortal incarnation, she could one day guide the chosen hero to the Triforce and to victory over Demise. Her will would live on through the ages, silent but enduring. And so, the world settled into its long sleep. The surface remained forbidden and shrouded in myth. Generations passed among the clouds, far above the old battlegrounds. The people of Skyloft built homes upon floating islands, linked by bridges and carried through the air by great birds known as loftwings. Each person was bound to a loftwing from birth, a sacred partnership said to have been granted by the goddess herself. With wings wide as sails and feathers bright as the dawn, these birds carried their riders through the skies in perfect harmony. Life on Skyloft was peaceful. The people lived by the rhythm of sunlight and wind, tending to their small gardens and trades. At the center of their lives stood the goddess statue, carved from stone and towering above the clouds. It was both a monument and a reminder, though many no longer remembered what it truly represented. Festivals were held in the goddess's honor, songs were sung, and prayers were whispered, but few believed that the legends had ever been real. The world below had faded into myth. Children heard tales of a vast surface beneath the clouds, filled with forests and oceans and ancient ruins, but none had ever seen it. To most, it was nothing more than a bedtime story told to spark dreams of adventure. The people of Skyloft were content with their floating paradise, untouched by fear or sorrow. The winds that carried their songs seemed eternal. Yet deep beneath the clouds, sealed in the dark, Demise's power began to stir once more. The earth trembled faintly. The winds above shifted in subtle ways. The seal that had held him for millennia was beginning to fray, unseen and unstoppable. Fate, which had been still for so long, began again to turn its wheel. In Skyloft, the goddess's plan was unfolding quietly. Among the young, there were those who felt strange dreams, soft echoes of things they could not explain. The goddess sword, resting in its pedestal within the floating island's temple, glowed faintly with each passing year, as if sensing that the time was near. Hylia's spirit waited, silent and eternal, for the day her mortal self would awaken. The story of Skyloft was one of peace, but beneath its calm lay the memory of a war that once shaped the world. Though the people no longer remembered the goddess's struggle, her legacy lived within them, in their courage, in their harmony with the sky, and in their songs of freedom. The loftwings soared as living symbols of that forgotten promise. And so the ages turned, like the slow drift of clouds. The surface below remained a mystery, the sky above a sanctuary, but legends have a way of waking when they are needed most. The seal upon the earth would not hold forever, and when it broke, the world would once more look to the heavens for salvation. Far above the clouds, in a land of sunlight and laughter, a young boy dreamed of flying higher than anyone before him. His name would soon be remembered throughout all ages, though for now, he was only another student at the Night Academy. His best friend was a spirited girl with golden hair and a bright smile, who loved to stand by the edge of Skyloft's cliffs and feel the wind against her face. Neither knew of the destiny waiting beneath the clouds, or the ancient bond that tied them to the goddess and the hero of old. But fate had begun to stir. The wind whispered a new beginning, and in the quiet heart of Skyloft, the legend of Hyrule was preparing to take its first breath. Chapter 2. The Boy and the Girl. Above the endless sea of clouds, where sunlight never dimmed and the wind sang eternal songs, life on Skyloft unfolded with gentle rhythm. The people of this floating world awoke each morning to the cry of loftwings circling high above. The great birds, with feathers in colors that mirrored the sunrise, were not merely companions, but partners in flight and life. To soar with a loftwing was to feel the freedom of the goddess herself, and to the people of Skyloft, that freedom was their birthright. At the heart of this world stood the Knight Academy, where young men and women trained to become protectors of Skyloft. Among them was a boy with calm eyes and windswept hair, known simply as Link. He was kind, modest, and often lost in quiet thought. Though not the most disciplined student, his heart was good, and his bond with his crimson loftwing was unmatched. It was said that his bird was of a rare breed, scarlet as flame, swift as the wind, and loyal beyond measure. The others joked that the bird reflected its rider's spirit more than Link himself realized. Not far from him, another student lived in the academy, a girl named Zelda. Her laughter carried through the morning air, bright and warm as sunlight. She was the daughter of Headmaster Gatpura, who oversaw the academy and kept the ancient legends of Skyloft alive through study and song. Zelda was admired by all, though it was not her lineage that set her apart. It was her kindness, her curiosity, and the unspoken bond she shared with Link. Since childhood, they had flown together through the skies, racing through cloud gates, and diving fearlessly toward the mist below, before pulling up in laughter. Their friendship was effortless, shaped by years of trust. That morning began, as so many others had, with the preparations for the annual wing ceremony. It was the most important event of the year, a tradition held in honor of the goddess Hylia, where the best students competed in a loftwing race. The victor would receive a blessing from the goddess, presented by a chosen maiden. This year Zelda had been selected for that role. She had spent the night rehearsing the ceremony's song, her voice echoing softly through the academy halls, while the wind brushed against her window. As dawn broke, the sky turned golden from the balcony outside her room. Zelda watched the clouds roll like ocean waves. She smiled, the breeze tugging at her hair. She felt at peace, though something in her heart stirred, a quiet unease, a sense that something was changing. In the distance, the bell of the academy rang. The wing ceremony would begin soon. Meanwhile, Link remained asleep. His friends, already dressed in their ceremonial uniforms, searched for him in exasperation. He was known for his unhurried ways and his tendency to oversleep, even on important days. When Zelda discovered he had not yet woken, she rolled her eyes, half amused and half annoyed. Taking it upon herself to rouse him, she marched through the academy halls until she found his room. Without hesitation, she flung open the door and called his name. Her voice, light yet commanding, filled the space, and with it came laughter. The day's first smile was shared between them. When Link finally rose and prepared for the ceremony, Zelda stood waiting by the statue of the goddess, her ceremonial gown fluttering in the wind. She teased him about being late, but there was affection in her voice. Together, they climbed the stairs to the platform where the wing ceremony would begin. The crowd gathered, their loft wings perched nearby, feathers glinting in the sun. Headmaster Ghirahim gave a speech, as he did every year, speaking of the goddess Hylia and the sacred trust between humans and their loftwings. He reminded everyone that courage and harmony with one's bird were the truest marks of a knight. Then the race began. Loftwings shot into the air, their wings beating hard against the clouds as the riders chased a small golden statuette, a token of victory released into the open sky. For a moment, Link lagged behind. His crimson loftwing had been hidden earlier that morning by Groose and his companions, who envied Link's bond with his bird and his closeness to Zelda. But once freed, the great scarlet bird soared with unmatched grace. Together, Link and his loftwing cut through the clouds, diving and turning with perfect rhythm. The crowd cheered as he caught the golden statuette, his bird's wings slicing through the air like blades of light. When the race ended, Zelda descended to meet him, her smile radiant. She placed the ceremonial sailcloth around his shoulders, the same cloth that would one day become a symbol of protection. "Well done," she said softly, pride shining in her eyes. As the crowd dispersed, she led him to the edge of the platform overlooking the endless horizon. The wind carried their laughter far across the sky. Yet beneath their joy, a subtle unease lingered. The wind that had always been steady began to shift. Clouds gathered where none should have been. Zelda's song was carried away too quickly by the breeze, and when she closed her eyes to pray, a voice seemed to whisper faintly within her heart, a voice both familiar and ancient. Later that day, as the sun began to set, Zelda invited Link to fly with her one last time before nightfall. They mounted their loft wings and rose high above Skyloft, gliding through rays of fading gold. From that height, the world felt infinite. Zelda laughed as she leaned into the wind, her hair streaming behind her like a banner. She turned toward Link, her expression soft. "Do you ever wonder what's below the clouds?" she asked. "The legends say the goddess sealed something there long ago. I think about it sometimes." Link smiled faintly, but said little. He had always been content in the skies, never needing to see beyond them. But before he could answer, the wind shifted violently. The clouds below darkened, swirling like a living storm. A sudden blast of air struck them both. Zelda's loft wing cried out as a great gust pulled her downward. Link shouted her name, diving after her, but the storm swallowed her whole. Lightning flashed across the sky, and she vanished into the clouds. Link reached desperately into the wind, but there was nothing to grasp. Rain and mist blinded him. His loft wing struggled to keep control, and he was forced to pull back, circling helplessly above the roiling clouds. Zelda was gone. The storm passed as swiftly as it had come, leaving the skies eerily calm. The sun set, painting the horizon in crimson light. Link landed on the platform near the goddess statue, drenched and shaken. The townspeople gathered, searching the horizon for any sign of the girl who had vanished. None came. That night, Skyloft was silent. The people whispered that it was an omen, that something ancient had stirred below. Link could not sleep. He returned to the statue of the goddess, the wind cold against his skin. There, beneath the moonlight, he knelt and whispered her name. Far below, beyond the veil of clouds, the surface world waited in shadow. The seal that held Demise was weakening, and the goddess's plan had begun. Zelda's fall was no accident. It was the call of destiny. Above the clouds, Link's heart burned with quiet resolve. The peace of Skyloft had ended. The journey was about to begin. Chapter 3. The Fall Below. When morning broke over Skyloft, the island was shrouded in unease. The clouds glowed pale and thin, as though the sun itself hesitated to rise. The people had searched through the night, their loft wings combing the skies, but no trace of Zelda had been found. The storm that had taken her had vanished without a whisper, leaving only silence and dread. Link, exhausted and restless, stood by the edge of the platform near the goddess statue, his eyes fixed upon the white expanse below. He could still hear the echo of her scream in his mind, carried away by the wind. No matter how many times he replayed it, he could not accept that she was truly gone. Headmaster Gaipora had tried to reassure him. The search would continue, he said, Perhaps Zelda had been carried to another island by the storm, or found shelter in some hidden sky alcove. But Link felt differently. Something deep within him, an instinct older than thought, told him that she had fallen beyond the clouds, to the world the legends spoke of, the surface, a place said to be lost, unreachable, and filled with danger. None had ever returned from attempting to descend through the cloud barrier, yet the thought of doing nothing was unbearable. That evening, as twilight deepened, Link wandered alone toward the great statue of the goddess. The air was still, and even the loftwings were quiet, roosting on their perches. The marble figure towered above him, serene and unchanging. He knelt before it, unsure if he was praying or simply searching for strength. For a long time, nothing stirred, until a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath him. The statue's eyes glimmered faintly, and the earth opened with a deep, resonant sound. From within the statue's base, a staircase revealed itself, leading into the light below. Link hesitated only a moment before descending. The passageway was lit by a pale blue glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. At its end stood a pedestal of ancient stone, and upon it, a sword unlike any he had ever seen. Its blade shimmered faintly, as though filled with the light of the sky itself. As he approached, a voice echoed softly through the chamber, a calm, melodic tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Chosen by the goddess," it said. "Take up this blade. Destiny awaits." The voice belonged to Phi, the spirit of the goddess sword. She was not human, nor truly alive, but a being of perfect clarity and purpose. As she emerged from the sword's light, her form was graceful and ethereal, with eyes that reflected the calm of the heavens. She spoke to Link in measured, gentle words, explaining that she had awaited his arrival for countless years. The time foretold by the goddess Hylia had come. Zelda was alive, but she had fallen to the surface, drawn there by fate. To find her and fulfill his purpose, Link must descend below the clouds and begin his journey. Link listened in silence, the enormity of her words pressing against his heart. He was no knight yet, only a student, but something in Foe's presence made the moment feel inevitable. When he grasped the sword, a pulse of light surrounded him. The air shimmered, as if the world itself recognized his choice. From that moment, his path was set. When Link emerged from the statue's chamber, the night sky stretched endlessly above. Veti's voice guided him to the launch platform, where his crimson loftwing waited. The headmaster, awakened by the tremors, rushed to meet him. Link told him everything: the hidden chamber, the sword, the voice, and the truth about Zelda. Though Gaipora's heart was heavy with worry, he saw the determination in the young man's eyes. He placed a hand upon his shoulder and nodded. "Then go," he said quietly. "Bring her home." At Phi's direction, Link carried an ancient tablet recovered from the chamber and placed it into the statue's altar. The tablet glowed with symbols that rearranged themselves like stars, and the clouds below began to swirl. A beam of golden light pierced the barrier, forming a single passageway downward. The way to the surface had been opened for the first time since the goddess raised Skyloft to the heavens. The moment was still. The people slept, unaware that the world was about to change. Link stood upon the edge of the platform, the wind cold against his face. He looked once more toward the clouds that hid the surface, where Zelda awaited. Phi floated beside him, her voice calm, yet tinged with something almost like compassion. "The descent will be dangerous," she said, "but your heart has already chosen this path." Link nodded. He climbed onto his loftwing, feeling the familiar weight of the sword at his side. The bird let out a low, steady cry, as if sensing the gravity of their flight. Together, they soared into the open air. The clouds rushed closer, swirling like mist around the edges of a dream. For a moment, he hesitated, but then he leaned forward, and the crimson loft-winged dove. The world became a blur of white. Wind howled past his ears. Lightning flickered within the mist, illuminating fleeting shadows of shapes unseen. Vi's voice echoed faintly through the storm, guiding him with calm precision. Adjust your course, maintain control, trust the wind. He obeyed, each motion instinctive, until at last the clouds parted. Below stretched a vast and silent world. The surface, forests as green as emeralds, mountains wrapped in mist, and rivers that shimmered like glass. It was a realm untouched by time, at once beautiful and foreboding. The loft-wing screeched as it struggled to maintain altitude. With a final burst of speed, Link dismounted and drifted to the ground with the aid of the sailcloth Zelda had given him. He landed softly in a clearing surrounded by towering trees. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in golden strands, warm and unfamiliar. The air was thick with life. The hum of insects, the call of unseen birds, and the rustle of wind through branches. After a lifetime among the clouds, the weight of the world beneath his feet felt both strange and wondrous. Fi appeared beside him in a shimmer of light. "We have arrived in the Faron Woods," she said. "It is here that the spirit of the goddess once walked. You must seek the one called Zelda. Her aura is near, yet hidden." Link gazed around him, taking in the vastness of the forest. He felt small, and yet the pull of destiny was clear. He took his first step forward, the goddess sword gleaming faintly in his hand. Somewhere beyond the trees, Zelda was alive and waiting. Above the clouds, Skyloft slept peacefully, unaware that its quietest son had crossed the barrier that none before had dared. And below, in a world reborn from myth, the ancient plan of the goddess was finally unfolding. The age of legends had begun. Chapter 4. The Journey of the Hero. The forest floor was damp beneath Link's boots, the air heavy with the scent of earth and rain. Sunlight shimmered through the canopy above in scattered rays, dancing upon moss-covered stones. This was Faron Woods, the first land of the surface, untouched for ages by human hands. Birds called to one another from unseen branches, and creatures moved through the undergrowth with quiet curiosity. After a lifetime spent among clouds and wind, Link felt the world pressing close around him, dense, alive, and full of secrets. Fi drifted beside him, her form radiant and still, her voice calm and resonant, guided him through the forest. This region is rich in life energy. It was once tended by the goddess herself. If my analysis is correct, the person you seek, Zelda, has passed through here. Her aura remains strong. Aldis. Link followed the faint traces she pointed out. Broken branches, disturbed soil, and a soft golden residue that seemed to shimmer faintly when touched by sunlight. Each sign led him deeper into the forest's heart. He encountered strange creatures, both harmless and hostile, the plant-like decubabas that snapped at his feet, and the bulbous octoroks that spat stones from pools of water. The goddess sword glowed faintly each time it struck, releasing light instead of blood. Even in battle, the world seemed more alive than violent, as though testing him rather than seeking his harm. Along the way, Link discovered the remnants of ancient machinery buried in the moss. fragments of metal and glass, unlike anything Skyloft had ever known. Fi explained that these were relics from an age before the goddess lifted humanity to the sky. The world below had once been full of wisdom and craft, but much had been lost in the chaos of the old war. Now nature had reclaimed what remained. As he ventured farther, Link met small, round creatures called Kikwi, who lived hidden among the roots and trees. They were shy but kind-hearted, speaking in high, trembling voices. When Link asked about Zelda, they told him of a young woman in a white dress who had passed through not long ago. She had been guided by an old guardian named Impa toward the temple to the north. The Kikwi offered their help, revealing paths concealed beneath hanging vines and fallen logs. It was there, deep in the forest, that Link first felt the presence of something darker. The air grew colder, and shadows lengthened. He came upon the entrance to the Skyview Temple, an ancient sanctuary built in Hylia's honor. The doors were sealed by magic, pulsing faintly with golden light. Fi explained that the temple's barriers could only be broken by restoring sacred waters to the surrounding springs, a task meant to test the worthiness of those who sought to enter. Link nodded, setting out to cleanse the springs of corruption. The trials were many. He battled monstrous plants and swarms of keys, solved puzzles that required the harmony of wind and motion, and learned to trust his instincts. He used his sword to draw symbols in the air that resonated with divine energy, an art known as the Skyward Strike. Each challenge seemed designed not merely to test his strength, but to awaken something within him. Courage, not the reckless bravery of youth, but a deeper resolve, the quiet certainty that he must continue, no matter the fear. When the last spring was purified, the forest seemed to breathe again. The light returned, and the songs of birds filled the air once more. The great doors of the temple opened with a slow, resonant hum. Inside, the Skyview Temple glowed with ancient power. Columns rose high into the air, vines draping over their carved surfaces. The water at the temple's center reflected a ceiling painted with constellations, remnants of a time when gods still walked the earth. Within its depths, Link faced his first true foe, Ghirahim, a tall, pale figure with eyes like polished glass and a voice smooth as silk. He was a servant of Demise, the demon king sealed beneath the earth, and his purpose was clear: to capture Zelda and bring about his master's return. Ghirahim taunted him, speaking of destiny and futility. But when steel met steel, Link fought with all the determination his heart could summon. Though inexperienced, his courage never wavered. The battle was fierce, filled with flashes of light and shadow. At last, Ghirahim withdrew, vanishing in a swirl of dark mist, his laughter echoing through the temple's halls. In the stillness that followed, Fi's voice echoed softly, "You have done well, Master. The first trial is complete, yet your path continues. Zelda remains ahead, beyond the forests." She led him to a sacred altar where an ancient crest awaited, placing the goddess tablet he had carried from Skyloft upon it. He watched as a beam of light shot skyward, opening a new passage through the clouds. Another path to the surface had been revealed. Before leaving, Link knelt beside the spring. The water was cool and clear, and as he looked into its depths, he felt a quiet reassurance. Zelda was alive. The forest whispered around him, and for the first time since her fall, hope stirred in his heart. He returned to the sky through a column of light that carried him upward in a spiral of gold. When he emerged above the clouds, Skyloft shimmered below the sun, unchanged and peaceful. Yet Link was no longer the same. He was no longer the student who had raced for a blessing. He was the chosen hero of the goddess, walking a path that stretched beyond the sky itself. Back in Skyloft, he visited the goddess statue once more. The new tablet fit perfectly into its altar, and another beam of light pierced the cloud barrier, this one descending toward a land of fire and smoke. Fi explained that this was Eldin Volcano, the next region where Zelda's aura had been detected. Though weary, Link tightened his grip on the sword and nodded. He mounted his crimson loftwing once more, the bird's cry echoing through the morning sky. The wind rushed past him, cool and steady. Far below, the light of destiny awaited. His journey through the surface had only begun, but the heart of a hero was already awakening within him. Each descent would bring him closer to Zelda, and closer to the truth of the world they were meant to save. Chapter 5. The Spirit Maiden Sips Path. The descent into Eldin Volcano was unlike anything Link had known. Gone were the forests and the song of birds. Here the earth burned with life of another kind. Rivers of molten rock flowed through narrow channels, and pillars of smoke rose into the sky like dark prayers. The air shimmered with heat, thick and heavy. His boots sank slightly into the red dust as he landed, and even Far's calm voice seemed to echo strangely in the oppressive air. "This is Eldin Province," she explained. "The energy readings indicate high volcanic activity, yet Zelda Sip's aura persists within these bounds. She continues her journey, likely guided by the servant of the goddess known as Impa." The ground trembled beneath their feet, a low and constant reminder that the mountain was alive. Link pressed onward, navigating rocky paths and precarious ledges. The creatures here were fierce and untamed. Fire keys that swooped from above, magma spumes that erupted from bubbling pools, and the hardy Mogma, a tribe of mole-like beings who tunneled through the volcanic soil. They were wary of outsiders at first, but Link's kindness and courage soon won their trust. The Mogma told him that a young woman matching Zelda's description had passed through, protected by a guardian cloaked in light. Through Fide's guidance and the Mogma's aid, Link reached the Earth Temple, a cavernous shrine carved into the heart of the volcano. It was a place of both trial and beauty, where the flames themselves seemed to move with divine intent. Inside, he faced puzzles of heat and pressure, fought creatures born of fire, and learned to temper his resolve. In the heart of the temple stood a massive dragon-shaped statue guarding a sealed chamber. There the flames parted, and for the briefest moment, he saw her, Zelda, alive and radiant, standing beside Impa. His heart leapt, but before he could reach her, the air split open, and Ghirahim appeared once more. His voice was smooth as ever, his eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. "You continue to amuse me, little hero," he said, "but you are far too late. The girl's path leads where you cannot follow." His words coiled like smoke, and before Link could strike, the demon raised his hand. The temple shook violently as he summoned flames to block the way. Zelda's eyes met Link's across the inferno, filled not with fear, but with faith. Impa stepped forward, her tone sharp yet calm. "Go, Link," she called out. "Your journey is not done. The goddess chose you for a reason. When the time is right, our paths will cross again." With that, she and Zelda vanished in a flash of light, passing through a sacred gate that sealed behind them. Ghirahim's fury echoed through the chamber, but Link stood his ground. The battle that followed was fierce. Steel and sorcery clashed amid the roar of the volcano. In the end, Ghirahim retreated once again, his laughter fading into the fire's hiss. When the temple fell silent, Link approached the place where Zelda had stood moments before. Only a faint shimmer of divine energy remained. Svuri spoke softly beside him. Her spirit remains in motion. She walks the path of the Spirit Maiden, a journey of awakening and remembrance. You must follow her to the next realm. She guided him to an altar where another stone tablet awaited. When he placed it into the goddess statue's pedestal, the light of a new path broke through the clouds, revealing the distant realm of Lanayru Desert. The transition from fire to sand was stark. The desert stretched endless and silent, the wind carrying whispers of what once was. Wani explained that this land had once been rich with life, tended by mechanical beings known as the ancient robots. Now it lay buried under centuries of dust, preserved only by time-shifting stones that could momentarily restore the past. Link marveled at their glow when touched. They filled the air with color and life, revealing glimpses of the world before its fall. Machines moved again, flowers bloomed, and the air shimmered with the hum of forgotten energy. As he ventured deeper into the desert, Link uncovered fragments of the goddess's design. The Spirit Maiden's path, Fi explained, was one of purification and purpose. Zelda was learning the truth of her origin, that she was the mortal reincarnation of Hylia herself, sent to ensure the survival of the world. Each trial she faced brought her closer to that realization, even as Link walked his own parallel road toward becoming the chosen hero. At the Temple of Time, standing half buried beneath the sand, Link encountered Zelda once more across a barrier of light. Her eyes met his through the veil, and though they could not speak, understanding passed between them. Before they could reunite, Ghirahim struck again, attempting to breach the temple's sanctum. Impa appeared, her power radiant, and shielded Zelda as she escaped through the gate of time. She turned to Link, her expression resolute. "Protect the seal," she commanded. "If Demise awakens, the world will fall again." Then she vanished, leaving him alone amid the ruins. Outside the temple, Fi guided Link to a sacred spring where the wind carried whispers of the goddess's blessing. There he raised his sword to the sky, and light gathered along its edge. It was the same light Hylia had once wielded, a symbol of the bond between heaven and earth. In that moment, Link understood what had always been true. His journey was not only to save Zelda, but to restore balance to the world. When he returned to Skyloft, the people greeted him with awe and relief, though he could not share their peace. He carried within him the knowledge of the surface, the beauty, the danger, and the burden of destiny. Fi stood silent beside him as he placed the final tablet into the goddess's altar. A new beam of light descended toward the Faron Woods once more, marking the next stage of his path. Night fell upon Skyloft. The stars shimmered softly above, their reflections glinting upon the sword's blade. Link stood by the edge of the platform, looking down at the sea of clouds. Somewhere below, Zelda was still walking her sacred road. Though they were apart, he felt her presence in every whisper of the wind. Their paths were no longer those of mere friends, but of destiny intertwined. The hero and the Spirit Maiden, bound by the will of the goddess and the promise of a world yet to be reborn. Chapter 6. The Battle with Demise. The air over the surface had grown still, from the forests to the deserts, from the peaks of Eldin to the hidden springs of Faron. An unseen tension stirred. The seal that bound Demise was weakening. The winds carried a low hum through the trees, and the earth itself seemed to tremble with memory. Link, having completed the trials of the goddess, felt that same restlessness in his heart. The time of peace was ending, and the final test awaited. Under Fi's guidance, Link returned to the sealed grounds, a place that pulsed with ancient power. The great spiral path descended into the earth, leading to a seal carved with the symbol of the goddess. He had been there before, helping to strengthen its bond when it first showed signs of breaking. But this time was different. The air was heavier, and the light from the sky above had dimmed. As he stepped into the clearing, a figure awaited him. Impa, the guardian, who had protected Zelda since her fall. She stood by the sealed pit, her gaze calm but grave. "The seal grows weak," she said. "The Demon King's power stirs once more. Zelda's work nears completion. But you must hold back the darkness long enough for her to finish." Link nodded, gripping the goddess sword at his side. He could feel the vibration of the earth beneath his feet, a rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat deep below. Without warning, the ground erupted. A monstrous shape burst forth, a dark, shifting mass of energy that twisted and coiled, its single glaring eye radiating hatred. The imprisoned, a fragment of Demise's essence, had awakened again. Its roar split the air as black smoke poured from its body. Each step shook the ground, sending waves of dust up the spiral path. Fist's voice was steady in the chaos. "You must strike the sealing spike at its crown, Master. That is the source of its corruption." Link sprinted down the path, the earth shaking beneath his boots. He used every skill he had gained through his trials, rolling boulders, climbing roots, and striking at the monster's toes to halt its climb. With each blow, the imprisoned howled in fury, clawing upward toward the temple above. At the highest point, Link leapt from a ledge and drove his sword into the seal, channeling divine energy through the blade. Light erupted across the grounds, and the creature collapsed, sinking once more into the earth. The pit sealed itself shut, and silence fell. Impa approached him, her expression softening. "The goddess's plan unfolds as it must. Zelda is completing the final act of her awakening. Soon she will restore the balance that was lost when Demise rose to power." Her words were both comfort and warning. "But know this, hero, the cycle will not end easily. Demise's hatred is eternal. Even if sealed, it will seek a vessel again." Link followed her gaze upward. The light of the sky shimmered faintly through the clouds, and for a brief moment he thought he heard Zelda's voice carried on the wind. She was near, and her presence gave him strength. When he reached the temple of Hylia, Zelda awaited him. No longer the girl of Skyloft, she stood now as the goddess reborn, a being of both divinity and mortal grace. The golden light of Hylia's essence surrounded her as she turned to him with gentle eyes. "Link," she said softly, "you have done everything I asked of you. You faced the trials, restored the land, and protected the seal. But now, I must do what only I can." She explained the truth that Fi had hinted at, the eternal plan that had begun ages ago. When Hylia first sealed Demise, she knew the binding would one day weaken. To ensure his final defeat, she had chosen to surrender her divine form and live as a mortal, so that through human courage and sacrifice, the Triforce could be used to destroy him. Zelda smiled, a quiet sorrow in her eyes. "I have awakened as Hylia's spirit, but my duty is not yet done. To strengthen the seal, I must remain here. I will sleep within this temple until the time comes when the final battle is ready." Link stepped forward, his heart heavy. He wanted to protest, to refuse to leave her behind, but she placed a hand upon his cheek and shook her head. "Do not grieve for me. This is my choice. You are my hope. When you face him, do not think of yourself as a warrior of Skyloft. You are the chosen hero of the goddess." Her voice trembled slightly, yet her resolve was unshakable. "I believe in you." Before he could answer, she raised her hand. A burst of golden light enveloped the chamber. Her body shimmered and faded into the seal below, where she would remain in slumber, guarding the prison of Demise with her own life force. The temple fell silent once more, filled only with the faint hum of divine energy. Fist's voice broke the stillness. "The Spirit Maiden has fulfilled her duty. The seal is strengthened, but the final confrontation approaches. You must seek the sacred flames that will transform your blade into the Master Sword." Link bowed his head. "Then that is what we will do." The quest that followed took him across every corner of the surface. In Faron's deep woods, he received the blessing of the water dragon, Faron, who guarded the spring of life. In the burning caverns of Eldin, he earned the favor of Eldin the fire dragon, enduring the trials of flame. And in the endless sands of Lanayru, he met Lanayru the thunder dragon, who taught him of time and destiny. With each blessing, the goddess' sword grew stronger, its light deepening, its voice resonating more clearly with fire's spirit. When he returned to the sealed temple, the sword glowed with a brilliance that filled the sky. The Master Sword was born. The world, however, had little time to rejoice. Ghirahim, driven by desperation and fury, struck once more. He infiltrated the temple, captured Zelda's resting form, and fled through the gate of time. Link pursued him without hesitation, leaping through the same gateway into the distant past. The land before him was bright and unscarred, a Hyrule before Hyrule, untouched by the wars to come. He found Ghirahim at the ancient sealed grounds, performing the ritual to awaken his master. Zelda was bound in a column of light, and Ghirahim's laughter echoed through the air. "You've been persistent, little hero," he sneered, "but you cannot stop destiny. The age of Demise will begin anew." Link fought his way through Ghirahim's forces, clashing with the demon himself in a battle that spanned air and stone. At last, he drove him back, breaking the ritual's control. But it was too late. From the pit rose Demise, no longer formless, but a towering figure of flame and shadow, his eyes burning with the hatred of ages. The sky darkened, thunder rolled across the heavens. Fi spoke softly, her tone tinged with reverence. "This is the true enemy of the goddess, the origin of all evil that will ever come to this world." Demise regarded Link with a smile that was more like a wound. "So, this is Hylia, Sith's chosen, a mortal, standing before eternity. You cannot destroy me. My hatred is endless." Link raised the Master Sword, its light piercing the storm. The battle that followed was fierce and primal. Steel met flame, light met shadow. They fought across a barren field, beneath a blood-red sky, where thunder and rain collided in endless fury. Though the demon's strength was vast, Link's will did not falter. Every strike carried the weight of Skyloft, of Zelda, and of all life yet to come. At last, in a single blinding moment, he struck true. The Master Sword cut through Demise's form, and the world fell silent. The flames dimmed, and the sky cleared. Demise, wounded and fading, sank to one knee. His voice, low and cold, echoed through the void. "This victory is temporary, hero. My hatred shall never die. It will pass through the ages, reborn in those who walk in my shadow. Those who share my spirit will rise again, and your descendants will face mine forever." With that final curse, Demise's body dissolved into black mist, which sank into the blade itself. The seal was complete, but his prophecy lingered. the beginning of the endless cycle that would one day bring forth Ganon. As the storm cleared, Link stood alone amid the fading light. Five appeared beside him, her expression serene. The mission is complete. The goddess's design has succeeded. Yet before we depart, there is one final duty. She guided him to return the Master Sword to its pedestal within the sealed temple, where it would rest until the next hero's call. Zelda, now freed from her divine sleep, waited for him there. The two stood together beneath the sky's soft glow, no longer goddess and servant, but equals bound by love and destiny. The world is safe, she said, for now, but we must protect it, not as gods, but as humans who will build a new future. Together, they returned to the surface, the world that would one day become Hyrule. The age of gods had ended, the age of men had begun. Chapter 7. A New Beginning. The dawn that followed was quiet. The clouds above the surface glowed faintly in gold and silver, and the scent of rain lingered in the air. The long battle was over. The world, though scarred, was at peace. In the valley below the sealed temple, the grass shimmered with morning dew. Birds returned to the trees, their songs rising like a prayer to the heavens. It was as though creation itself had exhaled, relieved to exist once more. Link stood before the pedestal where the Master Sword now rested. The blade gleamed faintly, its edge catching the light. It no longer pulsed with the urgency of battle. Its purpose for now was fulfilled. Hylia appeared beside him, her ethereal form more luminous than ever. She regarded the sword with calm serenity. The mission bestowed upon me by the goddess is complete, she said. Demise has been sealed, and the balance restored. The sword will now sleep until it is needed again. Her voice softened, a rare moment of warmth in her measured tone. Master, my time here draws to an end. Though I am a being of calculation and order, I have come to understand something beyond logic. It has been an honor to serve you. Her light flickered gently, and for the first time, a trace of emotion seemed to touch her words. May we meet again in another age. Link bowed his head as fire faded into the sword's crystal. The blade shimmered once more before growing still, its glow dimming to a steady pulse. He placed his hand upon its hilt, then released it slowly. The Master Sword would remain there for generations untold, waiting for the day when evil rose again. Zelda approached from behind, her expression calm but thoughtful. She was no longer the spirit maiden, nor the goddess Hylia, only Zelda, a human girl with golden hair and a heart full of courage. For the first time, she looked upon the world not as its guardian, but as its inhabitant. It feels different now, she said softly. The world below, it's beautiful, isn't it? For so long we thought it was lost, but it's alive. They stood together before the temple, gazing out at the vast, untouched land. Mountains rose in the distance, rivers sparkled beneath the sun, and the forests stretched endlessly to the horizon. It was a world reborn, a world that would one day bear the name Hyrule. Impa watched them from the steps of the temple. Though her face was aged and wise, there was kindness in her eyes. This land is the gift of the goddess, she said, and now it belongs to you. Guard it well. As she spoke, the air shimmered faintly, and her form began to fade. Zelda's eyes widened, but Impa smiled. My time in this age has ended. I was born to serve the goddess's plan, and that plan has come to its end. Do not grieve, for we will meet again when the cycle turns anew. With that, she was gone. Only her bracelet remained upon the temple steps, glinting faintly in the sunlight. Zelda bent to pick it up, holding it close for a moment, before placing it beside the temple's entrance. Link looked toward the sky, where the clouds hung bright and soft. Skyloft floated high above, unseen but not forgotten. It would always be their home, the cradle of their story. But the world below called to them now. We should stay, Zelda said, turning toward him. This land needs people, homes, villages, laughter. It needs life again. He nodded. Then we still build it here. Days turned into weeks as they explored the surface together. They found clear springs and fertile fields, ancient ruins covered in vines, and stone halls that whispered of lost ages. From the fragments of the past, they began to imagine a new future. The people of Skyloft would one day descend to join them, bringing with them their songs, their craft, and their hope. In time, a settlement began to form near the sealed temple, its first fires glowing softly against the dusk. The loftwings circled curiously overhead, their cries echoing through the valley. Each night, as the stars appeared, Zelda and Link would sit by the fire and speak of all that had come before, the goddess's plan, their trials, their friends in Skyloft. Yet as the nights passed, their stories turned less to the past and more to what could be built from it. One evening, as the wind carried the scent of flowers through the camp, Zelda looked toward the horizon and smiled. This place, it should have a name, she said, something that reminds us of where we came from, but also where we're going. She thought for a moment, then added, the legend spoke of the goddess's chosen land, maybe Hyrule. Link repeated the name softly, as if testing it. It lingered in the air like a promise. Hyrule, the land of balance, born of sky and earth, of courage and wisdom, of love and destiny. As time passed, the story of the goddess and the hero faded into legend. The Master Sword slept in its pedestal. The sealed temple became a shrine, and the people who descended from the sky built their homes across the surface. But the bond between Zelda and Link endured, not as divine beings, but as two souls who had chosen to stay, to live, to nurture, and to protect. And so, the world entered its first true dawn. The goddess had become human, the hero had found peace, and the land of Hyrule began its long history. The Triforce rested silently within the temple, waiting for the day when courage, wisdom, and power would once again be tested. Above the clouds, Skyloft still drifted through the heavens, a memory of paradise, but below, life flourished, fields grew, rivers sang, and the world began anew. The legend was complete, but its echo would never fade. For though this was the end of one story, it was also the beginning of every legend that would follow.